We were intrigued by a compound which exhibits the interesting phenomenon of triboluminescence, so we decided to have a go at making it and seeing if we could capture it on camera. We start with 10 grams of anthranoxylic acid, which we oven-dried for several hours before use. You can find out how to make this in our other video, linked here. We transferred the anthranoxylic acid into a 100 ml flat-bottomed flask. The flask needs to be big enough to be able to allow some internal reflux, so a 250 ml flask or conical flask would also work well. Next, measure out 25 ml of acetic anhydride. You can find out how to make this in another of our videos, linked here. Add the acetic anhydride to the flask containing the anthranoxylic acid. You will start to see the anthranoxylic acid dissolve. Then with swirling, the contents will suddenly turn solid. The mixture heats up, and the solids dissolve again, forming a red solution. Swirl the flask and you should see everything dissolve back into solution. The flask at this point is quite warm. Place the flask on a hot plate and heat it. You want to get to a very low boil where the contents are refluxing on the inside of the flask. Here we go. Keep this going for 10 minutes and then switch off the heat and allow the flask to cool. As you can see, we got quite a good reflux going, but with no vapor escaping from the flask because the anhydride has a high boiling point. Now measure out 8 ml of water. When your flask is back down to around 42-50 degrees C, add the water to the flask. Swirl the flask and you can see that the contents heat up again with a little bit of reflux starting up on the sides. Now put the flask back on the hot plate and heat it until it reaches a boil. Then remove the flask and place it somewhere undisturbed for a few hours in order to slowly cool and for crystals to form. Soon you should get some very nice white crystals growing out of the solution. This is our product, an acetylanthranilic acid. Beautiful. We chilled the mixture for another few hours to see if we could get more crystals. Then it's filter time, and we need to be as delicate as possible so as not to damage our crystals. We left these on the pump for a good 20 minutes in order to get all the liquid off. In the meantime, we prepared 20 ml of ice-cold methanol. We used this to rinse out the reaction flask, and then gently wash the crystals on the filter. We did notice that a small amount of product dissolved in the methanol even though it was ice-cold. We're not sure if any other solvents are suitable here though, but be careful at this stage. Again, we left the product on the pump until it was completely dry. Here's our product, 11.7 grams of crystalline N-acetylanthranilic acid. This is a 90% yield on starting anthranoxylic acid, which is great. We placed a sample of these crystals between 2 glass plates and crushed them in a dark room. But we couldn't see any flashes of light. We figured that maybe they needed to be drier, so we placed them into an oven at 100 degrees C for an hour. Here's our perfectly dry crystals. Again, we placed some on a glass dish and prepared another dish that we could use to crush the crystals. Nothing, either for the camera or for the naked eye. So we're not too sure about this one. We'll have a go at recrystallizing the product and seeing if we can get it to work with a very large single crystal. If anyone knows how to get this to work, then please let us know. Stay tuned.